Each layer of the valve body is going to have 2 dowel pins, except for the bottom layer. It has 3. So make sure that you get all your dowel pins back in there. And then we got check balls here. There should be 2 18s, I believe. Yeah, 218 thousandths. One goes there. One goes here. Then we got this little spring. 558, 224, 23. It goes on top of that check ball there. And we got 3 12s that go on here. We'll measure them when we go to put the valve body on the case. And 1 10mm goes right here. Alright, we'll be back when we get the next section of valve body. We're putting the Transgo kit in, or not the kit, but the torque converter stuff. 156 drill bit, they have you drill that hole out right there, deburr it after you're done. And they also have you drill 48 thousandths hole. He wants you to connect these 2 passages. He shows the drilling over here. I always drill it right here. It seems like I have more room. It doesn't matter where you drill it as long as you connect these 2 passages together. Do be careful. It's easy to break the drill bit off in there, and it can be a little bit tough getting it out. Before you drill that, you need to make sure that this valve has not been replaced. And if you look at that little hole that's in the back right there, if it's got a hole that connects this passage to here, do not do this modification. The valve, it's been done in the valve, so you can't have both. You can only have one. So the PR valve goes in, inner spring, outer spring, big spring. This sleeve right here, the tip of this bolt is going to ride in there. So you need to do this all by hand. Do not try to tighten this down with the impact until after you got it in there. Just push it down and you'll feel when you're in the groove. Right there. Okay, now we can tighten it down with the impact or socket, doesn't matter, whatever. Just don't get radical with it, there's no need to. We got 4 tubes that go back here. 3 of them are the same. We've got 3" 347. There is a spot for a filter back here. I throw these things away. Our other tube is 7 3/4. On this setup over here, what I do on these 2 bores right here, I got this wire brush. This is a GM throttle body port cleaning brush they used to sell. They may still sell it, I don't know. I have no idea what the part number is. It really doesn't matter. You just need a brush that you can go in here and you can brush the bore out, clean it out real good with solvent. Then take your CPC valves and get some Scotch-Brite. I just use the stuff that you get at the grocery store. It's green. You can buy a package of it for like $5 and it should last you a lifetime. There's so much in there. Just cut it in little strips and just buzz these off a little bit. Then I get some Aerocoil and lube these things up really good. Drop that in there. They're both the same, so it doesn't matter. This is the most critical point in your transmission as far as I'm concerned. If you get this right, your transmission will shift beautifully. Just take your valve and just work it, work it, work it. Make sure when it is done, that it should just fall right back in the bore. Make sure your spring is back underneath it. New end plugs. Reverse servo takes the fat O-ring that's in there. The stator, this is the O-ring it comes with, this little black one. Usually in the kit there's two different green ones. I take the smaller, darker green and I put it on here, and it fits a lot tighter, so you need to do this off of the valve body. Don't try to put this down in and then slide the valve body over the top, because you will more than likely cut it when you try to do that. So take it, and you're going to have to work it in here so that you can feel it, and just get it to where it goes up on there, and set this all down at one time. Our spring from the Transgo kit, most of them take the white one. Just follow the instructions in there, but I have yet to use anything other than the white one. They give you a tool to check it, and what you're doing is you're checking when you push that valve all the way down into the bore. There's a cutout over here. Once you push it all the way down, you should be able to slide this in there. I have never found one that I could not do that with. Let's see, I guess that's it until we get to the next section of valve bodies. Alright, this section of valve body here, there's no need to take this off. I just took it off to show you what's in there. There's a check valve. Usually it fits really tight. Don't even try to take it out. Two 218 thousandths check balls go in there, and then that plate just sits over the top, so there's really no need to take that off. You got two different sets of O-rings that go. You notice one has a larger, one has a smaller. Smaller one goes in the other part of the valve body. This one goes here. Then you have a bag that has three that are the same. One of those goes right here on this one. So our outer spring on the small (2" 239, 757, 99. Inner one 1" 734, 506, 107, and then you just got these little wires that hold them down in there. You don't actually have to have these wires. It's to make assembling it easier. because you're going to have to push down on those springs. You run more of a risk of cutting everything also if you don't do that. 2-inch 626, 738, 93, 1-inch 652, 499, 94, and we got a tube that goes right here. It is 2-inch 352, outside diameter is 393. Alright, we'll be back when we get the other part of the valve body. The little baggie that has a single O-ring on it is slightly smaller than the others, and it goes on this one right here. It goes up inside of here. And this spring. Two-inch 248, 753, 135. Then the baggie that had the 3 O-rings, and it takes another one from there on here. You got the little wires that hold it in again. It doesn't matter where you put the wire, it just helps if you put the opening away from that slot right there, so you can get a screwdriver up in there and pop that clip out of there the next time. The spring on this, 2-inch 915, 629, 86, 1-inch 799, 398, 82. And this is the ones that had the smaller O-rings of the 2 that go on top. That goes on here. Goes on here. Alright, this is your other CPC valve. You can do this one the way you do all the others. This one is not near as bad as about getting stuck unless you got just a ton of metal. It's usually still nice and free. And this is our last O-ringed in plug that we're putting in. Alright, we got 2 tubes that are the same, 2-inch 444. And we got 2 that are 7 and an 8. Alright, on your Hondas and Acuras, make sure that this bearing is back all the way. Once you do, stake it in place. You either stake it in place or you buy the shim that Sonic sells that you can put on your torque converter hub, and it will keep it pushed back. On your front seals, there's an arrow. There's also lines on the edges of the lip here. Make sure those lines are facing the same direction, because if they're not, your front seal will leak. I put my pump seals in, or front seals in dry. I want to give them extra gripping power. The axle seals, I'll grease them up a little bit. Flush is just fine. Your lever seal, grease it up really well. You don't, when you're shoving that shaft through there, you don't want it to roll the spring off of there. Talked about before, there's 3 dowel pins on the bottom case. Two up here, one down here. Got your separator plate. The main drive gear lip down. The secondary gear is with the line facing down. And the way I do it is I put my linkage on here, put my spring on, and I set this all down at one time. Alright, 312s. The 12s are 1 inch 560, and 10 is 1 inch 600. Oh, I forgot my spacer. When you're putting that Transgo spring in, you put the proper spring in it calls for. There's also one of these that you put down the center of it to stop it. And then once you put that in there, you're supposed to push this all the way down. Here's your little tool to stick in that slot right there. You're supposed to be able to put that in. Like I said, I've never had one that you could not. Alright, accumulator body. We got 2 bolts that are 2 inch 600. They go there and there. We got 2 bolts that are 2 inch 180. They go over here. And we got 3 bolts. I have to loosen that up. 3 bolts that are inch 592. They go on the other 3 spots. Got the separator plate that we drilled out. Goes on the top here. Don't forget your check ball, 218 check ball on the spring that we measured out. 218 ball down here. And we got our separator plate there, and this one here. These little screens that come in here, I throw them away. Put them back if you want to. I always leave them out. This section of our valve body, remember we talked to, actually we can't put this on yet. We gotta put this section on. Make sure your reverse servo's up in there. Got four bolts that are all the same. They are 2" 594. The short one here, 1 inch. Dowel pins and another separator plate. Now we can put this one on. Our stop pin. There's another filter goes on the back side of here. I leave it out also. Alright, we've got four that are the same. They are 2" 789. We've got one that is 3" 182. Two that are 2" 403. And the last one, 1" 197. Okay, we got this piece of our valve body. got this bolt is 6 1/8. We got one that is 4" 171, 3" 768, 3" 378, 3" 771, 1" 781, on the spot, 2" 177. Alright, there's a recessed portion. You're going to go up front. There's a recessed portion on your threads. It points towards you, and then the bolt hole has to line up towards the counter shaft. The linkage has to be in low gear. Our tube, I think we already talked about, is 8 3/4. We need our filter. Got 2 bolts, hold that in. The longer one's going to go over here. 4" 553. Shorter ones, 3" 971. The detent for reverse, 2 bolts, and they are 4" 934. Go. We have a shield that goes in for our race, oil slinger, I guess is what you'd call it, and then the race for the differential. Differential goes in, counter shaft. Take our O-rings off for 3rd gear. Don't forget to put the new ones on there. Alright, we'll set this to the side. And we'll build our drops. There's two different size O-rings and they're really close to each other. The smaller one goes up in the top and the larger one goes in the bottom. There's actually three that are really close to each other. And you're going to have extra O-rings left over. It all depends on what pistons you got. There's a check ball down in there. Make sure it's rattling around. Alright, return spring, our retainer, short end of the taper of our snap ring up. Alright, steel. 3 of these clutches right here. Backing plate. Cushion plate with the dish up. I'm going to start with steels and alternate up. Pressure plate. Yeah. Pressure plate 133. Snap ring 71. Yeah. Somebody needs to be charged. I don't understand people. They just people don't think anything through.
Yeah.
Alright, short end of the taper snap ring up. Alright, steel and clutch alternation all the way to the top. I forgot, put too many in here. I got extra steel and clutch I've just set on here. Alright, pressure plate is 101. Snap ring is 71. These sealing rings that are down here, I don't change those out. They have a tendency to stick way too far out. It's really easy to break them, and they work just fine with the old ones. They're already sized properly. The ones that they just give you in the kit are just not right usually. So I don't change them. Alright, you're going to have an extra O-ring. Okay. Where did I put the thing? This is your early 700 Sprag if you're going to put that in there. You can buy the Honda one also. These two races that come in here, you're going to throw them away. This is your old one. They'll have this oil slinger that goes on the bottom. You don't put that in there either. This is your old Sprag. The new Sprag you're going to put in there. There's a lip on here that's going to face up towards you. This metal washer is going to go down on top. Then the bearings are going to go down. Now some of these, depending on what model you have, they have a lip. If it has a lip, it's going to face down, and there will be a brass washer similar to this with a step on it that's going to have to go on there. But other than that, you just put that metal one on there, put this one in there. Let me go press this in. Snap ring. Short end of the taper should go up, but it really doesn't matter on this one. You can get it out easy, it doesn't matter. And your race goes on. This is going to turn clockwise and lock counterclockwise. You want to be able to spin this thing and it stop fairly quickly. And then this gets put on top. Line the splines up. And I'm gonna line it. There we go. Let me go press this in. Alright, so there's our assembly. We have a flat bearing. Sprag assembly goes on. 2 cage bearings. Another flat bearing. This washer with the bevel side facing down. 2 half moon washers. This washer with the lips going to go around them. And then the snap ring with the short end of the taper up. Assembly is going to go in here. We have flat washer with the splines. It's going to spline onto there. Flat bearing, cage bearing, here, and another flat bearing on top. The battery's probably going to be dying pretty quick here. Now I'm mark my drums so I know which one goes on which side. Alright. Put these both in at the same time. Save me a trip over there. The short end of the taper goes up on both of them. Go ahead and grease this up. Alright, we got a dish plate with the dish up. Alternator steels. Pressure plate is 92. Snap ring is 71. Dish plate again, up. Pressure plate is 100. Snap ring is 71. See if we can get the main shaft done. And I'll change batteries. Sealing rings I do change, especially if the converter has turned purple, because these melt. They are scarf cut, all three of them. They go together just like so. And put grease in the grooves to keep it in there a little bit better if you want to. Got a flat bearing, got a caged bearing, got a flat bearing, and our washer, lip facing that way. It's all going to go on here. gonna hit the table unless you got something underneath it. When I get ready, I'm gonna move it over here to the edge of the table. It's got a lip on it. It will keep it up. Got this collar, flat bearing, needle, cage bearing, gear, flat bearing, flat washer. Now put our reverse gear on, and then I'll change batteries. Got a cage bearing, this gear, come on now. Why are you being like that? Alright, this hub with the step side facing up. The slider with the notch or the raised end facing up. This end facing down. This gear with that facing down. Cage bearing. And this bearing or this gear. And then we've got a bolt, shouldered bolt, and a keeper that goes on right there. Sometimes you get these keepers in a kit, sometimes you don't. The bolt looks like that. This little lip's going to sit on top. And then just bend the tab over to lock it in place. Alright, I'm going to change batteries and see if I can change camera angles because we really need to be on top. Alright, I forgot to do the third drum before we change camera angles. So we'll do it real quick. Short end of the taper up again. Alright, got the cushion plate and dish goes up. There's two different drums for this. Teeth count on these steels. This one's a 24 tooth. Our pressure plate. This can't fit in any other drum, so it really doesn't matter. 102. Snap ring is 71. Two O-rings for third gear go on the shaft here. We got dowel pins. One goes on the left, one goes on the right, one goes down here at the bottom. They're all three the same. Case gasket on. Put this to the side for a second. You have this shim for setting your tension on your differential. You got the oil slinger and the race. Unless you change case halves, you shouldn't have any problems with this adjustment right here. And I got another one in here right now that the case is bad on. The bearings back here. I'll show you the video on that as far as them being bad. You got the magnet here. This end right here faces up. You got this washer with the lip. The lip's gonna face up into here. Our reverse idler, you want the long end down. Okay, we should be ready to go on to the case. You're going to have to hold that reverse idler back. Okay, looking good. Get our bolts in place and then we'll measure them. This bracket here that goes over here, this one here, there, and the grounding bracket right there. We're going to start off over here. I'm going to go in the clockwise all the way back to here and get our links. $5,880. 5 inches and 69 thousandths. $5,880. Same. same. 3" 700. 2" 912. 2" 900. 2" 925. 2" 905. 5" 886. Same. This one should be the same. 5" 71 thousandths. Same. Same. 5" 60 thousandths. Alright, those are all 14s. Axle seal in. Alright, the drain plug down here has a magnet on it. You need to clean it. And sometimes you get the washer, sometimes you don't. Got this spring, short end down. It's going to loop around that roll pin right there. You got this part of your actuator for park, this part here. Got another shouldered bolt with this, and this is going to sit on the back side right here. $10mm. Bend that tab over. You got this pin. The tip faces up. Two caged bearings. Flat washer. Piece, two 12mm bolts, part gear. lube up our O-rings while we can still get to them. And the flat bearing, cage bearing. And it didn't happen on this one, but sometimes when you're prying these gears off, you can chip a little bit of the tooth off. That's no big deal. Get you an angle grinder with a Scotch-Brite pad and just get on the gear where it's chipped and buff it at an angle until that chip is gone. And you can do any gear like that that's got a chip in it. You can actually get a gear that's chipped almost to half its distance, and you can reuse a gear that's chipped. It will not make noise, and it will be okay. And we got another flat bearing, and we got this washer with the lip down. Got a spline onto there. Got this gear, so we can go up here. Gears going here, that side down. The camera's kind of right in the way. Right, make sure your washer's all the way down. Take your drum and make sure it's splined until it splines into the shaft. Once it does, tap that thing down. Make sure it goes all the way down. If you just stick that drum on there until it splines, and then you try to tighten this down with the nut, the odds are you're going to miss a clutch and it's going to bind up. The washers have a dish to them. The dish goes down. One of these nuts does not have an arrow on it. That is the right-handed threads. The other two have an arrow, and they are left-handed threads. Inch and 5/16. I think my trigger's getting, my reverser is getting worn out. Once you get your nuts tight before you stake them, you're going to grab the drum, hold it still, and turn these gears. If you cannot turn these gears, you've dropped a clutch in here or somewhere, but usually it's right here. Okay, now we got that in there. We got this pivot pin. We got this spring with the hook. The hook's gonna hook into the case. The upper part of the spring's gonna go in that hole. stop pin's going to go over here. Right there. Put our gasket on. We got 3 fat O-rings that need to go on here. Usually they're the ones that get stuck inside these washers. Let's do our end cover. And a pair of snap ring pliers. Pull our snap ring out. Pull this out, and you have to wash this all up. There's an O-ring here and here. And there's one on every one of these. Now this tube is going to stay in the case. You try to take that out of there, you're going to regret it. And there's no need to take it out. If you bend it, you might as well just buy you an end cover. Okay, these tubes go inside bushings in the back of those shafts, and yes, they do go bad. I can tell you I've only replaced bushings on a Honda a handful of times. The way you can check them is you can take a piece of cellophane tape and just put a single layer, don't double wrap it, just one single layer. You don't even have to go all the way around, but pretty close to being all the way around, and then try to slide this into the bushing, and if it pushes the tape off, it's tight enough. If it doesn't, then you need to replace your bushings, but it's a rarity. Alright, for your O-rings, put them down inside your outer O-rings, put them down inside the case, and they're pretty close to each other. So find the one that fits best in yours. And like this one is fitting kind of loose for this one. Sure we're all the way down there. See how this one fits. Yeah, the other one fit good. This one's going to fit good, but this one over here is too loose. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take it, we're going to stretch it just a little bit. Nope. So I'll put the inner O-ring on. Make sure it's going up inside there. It was a little fat. Find another one. I like that one better. Okay, so these little feet have to sit down in that groove right there, and that sits on top. We want the short end of the taper of our snap ring up towards us again. Make sure the opening's not in that groove right there. Oh, come on now. Alright, make sure it's all the way in the groove. Sure we're all the way down in there. Let's see, I don't want to from that opening over there. I'll put it over here. Alright. Look good. Alright. Put the we got to put our accumulator in. The O-ring for this one is in that pack of the 3 that we had earlier. Here's our spring. I have seen these broke only a couple of times. Finding a spring, you're going to have to come up with your own, because nobody, I never found one when I had mine. 1" 548, 762. 121. Nobody had it, and that's when you could find parts. Alright, so it's got this little wire that holds us on there again. Now this one you do have to have. Put our end cover on the transmission. Trying to force this thing down onto there. You can see how tight that fits, and with brand new bushings it's going to be even more difficult. Normally I put this bracket on, now it goes right up here, and I can't do that right now because I don't have the cooler warmer deal on here, so I can show you how it goes. So this is going to get left off for right now. I'm going to put the bolts there so we can measure them, and then we'll put them in later. had to put our pressure switches in. Sometimes you get these washers, sometimes you don't. This time I only got one. These pressure sensors are different. Now this is a stepped one. This one has a step here. Some of these are flat, some of these are brown, some are black, some are yellow, some are white. It doesn't matter so much about the color, it's about the pressure it works at. So you may get one as a replacement that's a different color, depending on who made it. My advice to you is get one from the dealer, but you can do whatever you want. I got another linkage seal that goes down here in the bottom. Lube it up nice and good again. I just push it in with a pocket screwdriver. They just push right in. Some of this takes different stuff. Depends on which one you got. So mine is going to take this bracket here. But I got wiring harness got to plug into it. So let's just go ahead and measure these things. Then we can go putting everything on it. Alright, we got 1.790 inch. That should be all of these all the way around. From here all the way down to here. Just make sure that they are. Ranging between an inch 770 and an inch 790. Then we got two long ones that go up here. They are 3 inch 783. Then we got four shorter ones that go here. Inch 395. They go here, 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 and here. This one has a bracket that goes on it. So that means this comes out, this comes out, that comes out, these come out. Get all my stuff. And our temp sensor goes in the case down here. An O-ring on it. These two bolts go back in here. Really short 10 goes in on the ground bolt or wire right here. Make sure this is all nice and clean or this will not work properly. We got this bracket here, this bolt here. Let's put our neutral switch on. Going to have to look where the markings were for your old bolts. This goes right there. These bolts with the washers are for the neutral switch. Cover for a neutral switch. There's a really short bolt that goes here, and then there's a little bit longer bolts that go for these others. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 800 thousandths, 850 on that one. Same for up here. Same for over here. And same for the bolt that holds the temp sensor in. I think we're done up here, so we'll flip this down. Alright, there's 3 O-rings on all these solenoids that go here. The black one goes here. Brown one goes here, and then the black one on top and brown one on bottom on the side. Two speed sensors have an O-ring. They're the same, but I do mark them and put them back where they came out of. Sometimes you get the new one in the kit. This time I did, so I'll put it in. Figure out which way I need to go here. Just make sure it goes down into the channels it needs to go into, and it's not kind of up off of it, because you'll mash it when you try to bolt it down, and this one may not stay in there, so I may be putting the old one back in it, and it's not wanting to stay, and I don't feel like fighting it. I haven't had one leak yet, so we'll just do this one this way. Now this thing has been turned. I had to wrench this bolt out. Say these are 1 inch. It's got a little tube that goes behind it. There are screens on these. Make sure the screen is cleaned out. It goes in the bottom hole over here. tubes that go in here. This oiling tube that goes up and cools off the solenoids. This gasket goes on here. Three O-rings go on here. Solenoid. These bolts are 1" 190. 6 of them. It has this bracket that goes over here in this corner. Filler tube has an O-ring on it. Bolts that hold those 4 solenoids on, 845. For the speed sensors, 1 inch. This bracket here. Has one of these short ones in it. Short one on the filler tube. Alright, let's tighten all this down. We'll go to the cooler warmer. Right here. Oil tube here. Gasket here. Cooler warmer plate. This side goes down. three 10mm bolts and hold that in. 1 inch for the two back here that are short. The long one that goes there, inch 395. Alright, there's two different versions of this thing. There's a screw in and a push in filter. This one's a screw in, obviously. The push in one has a spring that goes behind it, and then it's got a aluminum bolt-on cap that has an O-ring on it, and three 10mm that hold the cap on. Sometimes you get the washer for this, sometimes you don't. Okay. These two bolts in that we took out. Okay. We've got the O-ring that goes on here, and O-ring that goes on here. Call this thing a jet kit. Goes in the back of that. Two 10s that hold that on are 1 inch. There's a 10 on the bracket over here. It's 685. Put that in there, but they're just going to pull that back out because that's where they fill it up at. There's a cooler warmer that goes on here. We're going to bypass that. We get the one that's made by, I believe it's Sonax, but you can take that off. There's water that comes down here from the engine or radiator, because you don't have lines going to the radiator, but the lines come here, and this big round thing is called a cooler warmer. And we bypass that, put this on there so we can put cooler lines on it and run a cooler up to the front of the radiator. This neutral switch pops into there. Our cooler line banjo bolt goes here, washer on the bottom, washer on top. $17mm, don't get too radical. Check our shaft, we're turning good. Alright, save these washers for next one down the road. Let's see. That's everything on this one. I got an O-ring that goes on the speed sensor over here. They kept, so everything else is done. We'll see you on the next one.